When is this for the pledge? Sorry, sorry.
Did I keep track?
What?
Did I keep track?
I think
That was the
so.
most important thing. That was the most important thing in the world.
Who had the honor of doing it?
Did it with such great gusto,
Yeah, you did.
picking people to do it.
It's like being the line leader in a school too.
Okay. First, yeah. All coming together. There we go. Okay. All good? I will call the Manlius Town Board meeting to order, February 9th, 2022, starting at 6:30. Councilor Bollinger, will you lead us in the pledge?
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
So as is custom, we will open up for open podium. So if anybody is here from podium, do we have anybody submit ahead of time?
We did have one attendee submit ahead of time, but they did not respond back whether they're going to be in person or confirm. So
So then, feel free to raise your hand if you're here for open podium. Come on up.
How you doing? My name is Dave Barnwell, we're from the town of Manlius. I just had from the last meeting, I was wondering if could elaborate further on the solar charge units. There was a grant for them.
Oh, for the EV charging station?
So I was curious to know what level charging stations they were,
Two.
where they were going to be placed.
In the back parking lot?
So do we have electric vehicles in the town?
We plan to purchase 2 of them for our planning department.
So we actually have a grant to support, so we can go out and get 2 electric vehicles for the planning and development department.
So we are gonna obviously pay for those through the town, right? To
For the electric
maintain-
vehicles?
Maintain the charging units and everything, right?
Yeah.
So wouldn't it be better to put those somewhere where the people can use them?
These will be open to the public.
Right, but if they were closer to places where they could walk to
So-
shop or, you know, we could
Absolutely.
put money back into the town, especially if you're thinking about building a new town office. If this one goes away, then you put solar charging stations in a place you're no longer gonna.
Well, so they're just electric charging stations for the vehicles. They're very similar to the ones that are down in the municipal lot just here in Fayetteville. So I believe the plan is it'll be 2 stations with 2 chargers on each,
4 ports.
4 ports. So
four
basically,
parking spaces.
we'll be able to secure that with the grant for the charging stations. 2 of those ports will serve town vehicles, for the majority of their usage, and then there will be 2 open. And basically, we're putting them there because we don't have really anywhere else that we own and would have the right to put that. We could maybe do a negotiation, but we still need that infrastructure here for those electric vehicles. And anybody that's here during the day knows that we've got a lot of people that, go park in the back and walk along the canal and stuff. So they're maybe not as accessible as possible, but they will be open to the public. And, we'll try to let people know too.
Are they able to be moved if you build a new town hall?
No.
We would probably get new ones in
Yeah.
that way.
And how much is that grant work that you're gonna use for a short period of time?
Well, we're required to use it for 5 years. We have to be connected so that way they can take
You have to use it what?
for 5 years. They'll have to be there.
Connected to the system, yeah.
To the system, getting data for.
So in, a new building is pretty far away from, whenever it will be operational.
Does
So-
the grant fully fund all 4 of those?
No, it's, I don't have the exact figures, potentially it's about 80%.
Yeah, thank you. Okay, is there anyone else here for open podium? Okay,
We do have 2 attendees in the room if you want to ask.
so our Zoom attendees, if you would raise your hand or submit a Q&A, if you're here for open podium, please let us know. Okay, we are at 6:35, correct? Okay, so we're gonna shuffle the agenda around just a little bit. We are gonna move to agenda item 14, because we ended up with quite a lot of business and don't want anybody who's here for the public hearing to have to hang out for too long. So we will be going to the public hearing for the zone change, Twin Shore Properties on North Burdick Street. And we need a motion to waive the reading of the public hearing.
I'd like to make a motion to waive the reading of the public
Notice.
notice.
Second.
All in favor?
Thank you.
Opposed? Carries.
So, Mr. Supervisor, before we go into the public hearing, I don't know if we want to have a presentation first, but we would have to do a secret analysis before we go into public hearings. So I'm not sure what order you want to go in.
So would you like to come up and present?
Certainly.
And I think that we'll see something up on the screen.
Yep, they're all.
While he's getting that up, good evening, Mr. Supervisor, members of the board, and other attendees. For the record, my name is Tom Serio. And as you all are aware, we've had, I guess, quite a few meetings and many conversations with this board, as well as your chiefs, police and fire, regarding this zone change, and they've all been very positive. Everyone has copies of the maps, I think, right? We're gonna get them up there.
Did you hit save?
Allison's doing 2 things at once, so.
Yeah.
Yeah. Start broadcast. There you go. To get to your. Okay. Good thing we did that.
There we
trial.
So this is existing, right? Okay, and you can switch back and forth? Yes. Perfect, okay. That's fine, you can leave that up for a second right now. So, okay, as you know, we're here tonight for a zone change on the North Burdick Street property. From the current map that's up there, which is restricted agricultural, RA, residential 1, R1, neighborhood shopping, NS, and residential multiple use, RM, 2, switch to the next one, to restricted agricultural and commercial A. That's the proposed map. So as you know, as a result of this board's referral on January 5th, 2022 to the Town of Manlius Planning Board, we appeared in front of the planning board, wherein they in turn made their recommendation back to this board for a positive approval. The zone change request was also referred to SACWA, wherein they also provided a positive recommendation for approval for the zone change. Specifically, they determined that this proposed change will have no significant intercommunity or county-wide impacts, which brings us tonight to the scheduled public hearing. So as you can see from the maps up here, the proposed change is CA and RA. All right, everyone see the outlined part
Mhm.
Okay. So those two, commercial A and restricted agricultural, the zone change that we're proposing benefits both the town and the applicant as it makes the subject property consistent with the area. It creates a commercial A zone while preserving the bulk of the property as restricted agricultural. And it allows for mixed-use development of the property while at the same time preserving the opportunity to work together with the town on potential municipal developments. North Burdick Street has been tagged as an economic corridor for the town, and the zone change will allow additional development along Burdick Street that is consistent with the uses already in place. As you can see from the zone change map, the properties across North Burdick Street are zoned commercial A, commercial B, and restricted agricultural, and are used for Kohl's shopping, restaurants, auto sales, and the town center retirement community. This zone, CA and RA, would make a natural flow along the street to allow development that preserves the character of the area while at the same time promoting growth. It is true that we do not have a specific development project yet. We certainly will after tonight's meeting. Well, actually, let me take that back. Probably not tonight's meeting, because I think in the publication, it was stated that there would be a second meeting, so probably after the February 23rd meeting. However, as all of you, I'm sure, are familiar with, any development must come back before the town for site plan approval. And at that time, on a specific case basis, we would address all appropriate considerations and any agency concerns. Any questions?
Any questions from the board?
This is not really my question, but I know that we were just talking about the fact that the original zone is neighborhood shopping where CA is proposed now.
Yep.
And given the sewer lines that are there too, and the fact that neighborhood shopping only restricts your size of a building in a ratio so that there's more property, I think, than building. Is there an argument to be made that keeping it neighborhood shopping makes more sense? It's a less intense use.
Yeah, I suppose it could be an argument. Yeah, I can make an argument for both sides.
Yes, you could. I'm asking, and I guess I'm asking us before, but I mean, maybe that's a question we ask the planning board too, but neighborhood shopping is not a very strong, we don't have very much neighborhood shopping. It hasn't been a zone that we're really using that much.
But I think CA really opens up a lot of options. I think that's why.
Yeah, it's probably better
That's why it was
for people
probably the
choosing.
one that was selected.
So the concern though is because that parcel is in the floodplain is what is the main concern.
Yeah, I think, do you want us to debate before we hear from the public? or-
We can, so we'd have to do seeker and then we can go to the public hearing.
Okay.
We want to do that?
I'd like to hear from the public.
Yes, please.
You got a speaker to read for
Okay.
us?
So actually, we're gonna go through part 2 of the seeker long form. The applicant has already filled out part 1. We have not declared ourselves lead agency for seeker purpose for the zone change. So if somebody wants to make a motion to declare ourselves
I'll
lead
make a
agency.
motion to declare the town board as lead agency for purposes of seeker on this.
Second.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carries.
So for the record, this is a type 1 action because of the size of the property. I think it's 120 some odd acre, and the zone change would require this to be a type 1 action. Really, the effect of that is that the applicant should do a long form EAF, which they have done. So for the record, let's just make sure that we identify this as a type 1 action. So the applicant has filled out part 1. It's our responsibility to go through part 2. And I have part 2 in front of me. I don't know if Allison can pull that up so you can kind of go through it with me. And we need to keep in mind as we're going through the seeker form that our responsibility is to determine whether or not the zone change, right, the changes in zone will have a significant environmental impact. We are not determining a specific project because the applicant has not provided us with any project. there would be a separate and distinct seeker process that would go through the planning board if there was a subdivision, for instance, on the RA, or if there was a site plan for the CA. So the seeker for the actual project itself, the individual project, would be done by the planning board for those types of things. So what we're trying to figure out is going from what exists today, which is R1, CA, and NS to RA and CA is going to have a significant environmental impact. Does that make sense to everybody? Okay. So first question on the, that we have to respond to is, will the zone change itself have an impact on land? Will the proposed action involve construction on or physical alteration of the land, surface, or proposed site?
So the zone change by itself doesn't, it would be the construction of the project. that we-
And does everybody agree with that?
Right, so no.
I agree with that. Same for question 2. The proposed action may result in modification or destruction of or inhabitable access to unique, unusual landforms on the site. Cliffs, dunes, minerals, fossils, caves. We know that as it sits there today with the zoning, it would have an effect on those things, but it's not going to change if we change it from CA to RA. Does everybody agree with that? Or
Or from R1 to
From
RA.
R1 to RA.
R1 to RA? So does everybody agree with that, or? Yes. Okay, so the answer to that is no. Impacts on surface water. Proposed action may affect one or more wetlands or other surface water bodies.
Okay, this is the one where I want to comment.
Yep.
So I believe that I would not have agreed to the neighborhood shopping either, so I don't know where this fits.
Yeah.
But what I want to say is I believe that CA should, the line should be where the red line is, that's the floodway. And that the floodway needs to stay RA and that the CA should begin on the other side of the floodway.
So that is an excellent point that you're making. I think we need to save that point for the zone change itself. Because from a environmental standpoint, whether it's NS or it's CA or RA, is it going to make, from an environmental significance standpoint, do you think that's going to make a difference?
No, because it's already in that.
Right.
Right.
It just shouldn't have been.
So I think the answer to that is no, too, from an environmental standpoint. Impact on groundwater. Proposed action may result in a new or additional use of groundwater or may have potential to introduce contaminants to groundwater or to an aquifer.
Okay, so the zone change by itself, no. If they dig wells, yes.
Impact on flooding. The proposed action may result in development of land subject to flooding. Again, right now, as the property sits, you can build houses there. You can build commercial A properties there. And you can build retail shopping centers. So
The
does
zone doesn't
the zone
change.
change actually make a difference in
Doesn't
terms
make it
of?
any worse.
Okay. So the answer to that is no. That was groundwater, right?
Yeah.
No,
Okay,
that is flooding.
flooding, I'm sorry, okay. Impacts on air. The proposed action may include a state regulated air emission source. The answer to that is no. Impacts on plants and animals. Proposed action may result in the loss of flora or fauna,
Not just the zone change.
not just the zone change. Impacts on agricultural resources. Proposed action may impact agricultural resources. The answer to that is no. Impacts on aesthetic resources. The land use proposed action are obviously different from or in sharp contrast to current land use patterns between the proposed project and a scenic or aesthetic resource. No. Aesthetic or historical archaeological resources. The proposed action may occur in an or adjacent to a historical archaeological resource.
It is adjacent.
Yeah, it is adjacent. We have sent this to the state Historic Preservation Office. We have not heard back from them. So it's been presented to them for their review. And we have not heard back from them.
So how do we answer this question?
Well, the proposed action may occur in or adjacent to a historic or archaeological
So that's
resource.
yes.
Okay, so the answer is yes. Proposed
It
action.
doesn't change it, but it's still, yeah.
Which resource is it?
Very
There you go.
Oh, behind it. Oh, yeah, yeah.
So then-
Ding.
I was gonna say you made the Erie Canal, right? But I thought, no, it's so obvious. I didn't even mention it. And then you're like, "What?"
All right, so then let's go through the sub-questions, which are the proposed action may occur wholly or partially within or substantially contiguous to any building, archaeological site, which is listed or has been nominated by the Board of Historic Preservation for
Well,
inclusion.
I think the aquifer is.
To buildings, archaeological sites, or districts, which is listed. I don't think they're listed on the historic
Yeah.
register.
Not the historical
Yeah, not the
register.
historical
No.
Like there's water there, but it's not
The
historic water.
aquifer itself, though, is.
It's
Yeah.
not, it's,
I'm trying to remember the.
We had
we
just had a
went to we
presentation.
just went to it in January.
So the question is, will the zone change itself?
It won't impact. it
Will it have a
what?
significant or moderate
No
or
or
large
small.
impact
No,
or small? No or small. Okay.
No.
The proposed action may occur wholly or partially within or substantially contiguous to an area designated as sensitive for archaeological sites. At SHPO archaeological site inventory, the answer to that is
no or small.
no or small. Proposed action may occur wholly or partially within this or substantially contiguous to an archaeological site not included in the
No.
inventory, no or small. Other impacts, does anybody have any other impacts they want to?
Not related to historical.
Okay, so I would say no to small there too. So while the zone change is adjacent to a historic landmark, the Erie Canal, the zone change itself is not going to have a significant impact on that historic.
Yeah.
And it's not going to be much different than what exists today.
Yeah.
Okay. Impacts on open space and recreation. Sorry about taking so long, but
No worries.
the proposed action may result in a loss of recreational opportunities or a reduction in open space sources as designated in any adopted municipal open space plan. We don't have one, so the answer to that is no. It will not impact a critical environmental area. The only critical environmental area we have in the town of Manlius is, what is it?
Is it near 3 Falls?
Three Falls Woods. Doesn't affect that. Impact on transportation. The zone change will have no significant impact on transportation.
Not compared to the neighborhood shopping.
No, I don't think so.
Thank you. Impact on energy, the proposed action may cause an increase in the use of energy, form of any energy. No. Impacts on noise, odor, or light, the proposed action may result in an increase in noise, odor, or outside lighting.
Not, no.
Not the zone change, okay. Impact on human health, the proposed action may have impact on human health from exposure to new or existing sources of contamination. No. Consistency with community plan, the proposed action is not consistent with an adopted land use plan.
We don't have it.
Working on it.
The answer is no.
Just put
Consistent,
NA.
consistent with community character, the proposed action, project is inconsistent with existing community character. Anybody think that?
No.
No.
It's very similar to.
Yeah.
what exists in the area. Okay, so those are all the 18 questions I think there are. Based on those 18 questions and the answers to those 18 questions, it appears to me that the zone change itself will not have a significant environmental impact. And therefore, if somebody wanted to make a.
So I can make a motion for a negative declaration. for people.
Okay, all in favor?
Right.
Opposed? Carries.
Thank you for indulging me on that. Now we are ready to open up the public hearing and move forward.
So we'll have, Mr. Chair, if you'd like to sit back down in the audience, we'll have, so what we're gonna do is we're gonna open up the public hearing. We'll ask, just raise your hand, we'll bring people up. We'll ask you to come to the podium, about 3 to 5 minutes. The goal here is to have some public comment and then make sure we have some time for answers and maybe a little bit of a managed discussion. Just so that if people have questions, we don't want it to feel like, that it's just gonna go into the void and not being answered, okay? So can I entertain a motion to open the public hearing?
I'll make a motion to open public hearing.
I'll second it.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carries. Okay, so somebody would like to come up and make a public comment?
We also had 2 attendees.
And if anybody in the virtual attendance would like to come up and, or to be promoted to panelist and make a public comment, please raise your hand or submit a Q&A so we know that you're interested.
Brian, do you want to come up?
Yeah.
You can start the ball rolling.
Okay. How y'all doing this evening?
Good.
Pretty good.
My name's Brian McCallus. I live at 150 North Burdick Street. And as you guys probably won't know, a lot of you are all new here. So this project, we tried to develop this land, I would say between 7 and 10 years ago. It was shot down. There's a little basin there between the culvert, which is village line and the town line, and that south wall of the quarry. It's a holding bowl for water that floods down there. They come in to develop that area, and that flood water comes behind those 2 ponds, so the creek and stuff and everything, it comes down through there. That's a haven. Everybody lives down there, Lower Faithful, and it's actually a haven for your town hall or the village, the mall down there. Because if it wasn't for that little bowl, and they go developing that property, a lot of that area there, you're gonna have to bring in 10 foot of fill to bring that wall, that area up to road grade, anywhere from 10 to a foot. You're gonna displace all that water. Nobody has been able to tell us where that water is gonna go, what's gonna happen to it. Same thing, it was the same problem we had, Mr. Olson probably justify that too, where we had problems on the, I'm sorry, I thought that.
I made that mistake like 3
I
times.
know.
Every time he walks in.
Well, they had issues on the south side of that problem there. And development command took all those trees out,
Yeah.
has been able to develop there, because they can't figure out where they're gonna put that water. We get flooded down there every spring, sometimes in the summer, and every year in the spring. But we just had a flood a couple weeks back, a couple months back, it was down there, water, that whole area down there, that neighborhood was underwater. So, this is something, who's gonna develop it, what they're gonna do? I've invited a bunch of you, all said you come down, I'll walk that land with you, probably won't be legal.
Can get special
But
dispensation.
it's
We
something
might
that-
need to wait for it to be legal.
His
and
house
then
would
we
be
can-
underwater. I fought against the project down there before. They offered to buy me out, but you know what? My other neighbors are still down there.
Yeah.
This is something that people gotta take into effect. Really seriously look at this. It's not just, a lot of you probably weren't here when it flooded all the way over here, so we're on High Bridge.
Yeah.
People talk about a 100-year flood. Well, guess what? It floods down there every year.
Yeah.
So this is something you gotta take, really seriously, a serious look at. The other thing is, I don't know how many of you were here. We used to haul quarry stone out of over there in Manoa. You know where those ponds are over there?
Yeah.
A lot of underground water around this area too. July, you can dig in my backyard, get down 18 inches and you're in the water. So this is something you gotta really, really think about.
Can I,
Myself, I'm gonna fight you every inch of the way, just to let you know.
can I ask if we can pull up the map again and ask Mr. McAllister to point out exactly which area he's talking about?
Sure, if you're willing. Would you be willing to pull up the map again?
Because if it's in an area that's already zoned neighborhood shopping, then I have a question for Tim.
Here's limestone, this is the village right here, this whole line, this whole section here, all the way around between the creek, those ponds. All this right here is underwater. This whole area, this is the aid, that saves us. You've got sewer lines that run here from the county,
Right.
you run up across over there too, and every year, when it floods down there, those manhole covers are underwater. And after it goes down, you'll smell sewer over there. So. Like I said, bring that property up to road grade, you're talking 8 to 10 foot fill on the back side, along this side of this wall here. Bring it up to road grade down here.
Okay, so that's your concern, is that by the time you brought that up,
By the time you
no,
bring that
you
up.
are
and they
sending
do
the
anything,
water back and.
They're displacing all that water. And the thing is, it's not just that side, it's over here too.
Mhm.
Can you point on the map where you mean, like what's over here?
Oh, on the
other
There's
side.
over here.
On the other
This is
side.
what I'm saying on this side of the creek.
Okay,
It's gonna hit you over here too, because the creek's just out back here.
right,
The
right, okay, I
The
understand.
state
Here,
just spent how many $100,000? What they spent down here to fill this
Right,
to
to
bring that
move-
up.
Yeah.
Well, guess what? The last flood, all that pretty work there was underwater.
Yeah.
You know, so you go out and look at that wall and see how high that curtain comes up. I mean, you have what, a 10-foot falls out there before, it was 10, 15 foot high. I seen the water only drop maybe 6 inches over that when it floods down through there. So it's a lot of water. And you get over there, you find somebody coming to displace that water, we're gonna be in trouble. So,
Thank you.
thank
Very much
you.
appreciated.
Thanks very much.
We'll see about that tour.
Is there anyone else here who would like to make a public comment? Okay. So.
So
Gina,
we'll
there's,
extend the hearing to next time,
is that the plan? That we'd like to do?
We were noticed, yeah.
because that's what the public notice says, so.
Yeah, we gotta stick with a public notice, right?
Okay, so before we close it, is there anything you'd like to say in response to that public comment?
Just something real quick. Have y'all seen the pictures I brought in?
Yes.
Okay, what do you stand on?
Well, I'll get. it.
I haven't. We'll see.
Did you?
Yeah, sure. So my understanding of what you're saying, sir, is that right now it floods.
It floods all the time, yes.
Okay.
I walked through 4 foot of water to get to my house down there.
Well, there's a good possibility we're gonna make it better.
I don't.
Well, I don't, look, I don't know that, and certainly this is not the appropriate time to debate that, but we certainly have one of the finest engineering firms here in central New York that, you know, we've had preliminary conversations, that has certainly been addressed. They are aware of it, and they are coming up with solutions on how we're going to resolve that. So there's a very high likelihood that it's going to get better. In fact, your property probably won't flood when we're done.
They brought in a quote unquote super engineer too.
Who? Yeah,
No,
but
listen.
I-
Well, I just would like to say,
Yeah, hang
this is a public hearing.
Yep.
And just, if we could have
One person at a
an
time.
opportunity to
Okay.
just make a full statement.
Yeah, and again, sir, I don't want to contradict what you said, but one comment was that the previous project was shot down. I don't know if that's accurate. I don't think it ever came in front of this board or any board to get shot down. I don't think they ever even got to the point where having control over the land to get to that point.
I've been here the longest, I think,
But I was at that hearing.
except for you.
Yeah.
And you.
But I was
So
at
you're-
that hearing,
you're-
of course.
Of course, the zone change, there was a zone change that actually took place
Mhm.
on this property within the last 10 years. The original project for housing, there was a subdivision, I think, that went before the planning board, but it wasn't, but ultimately, from an engineering standpoint, I think they were running into obstacles that they couldn't overcome, and therefore they pulled the application. So I don't think it was ever quote shot down by the planning board. I think that there were engineering challenges, and there will always be engineering challenges with this property. And just to the comment that Mr. Serio made, the fact of the matter is, once if a project is presented to the planning board, there are regulations related to stormwater and maintaining and managing stormwater that the applicant is going to be required to prove to the planning board that the rate of runoff off of the property will be no greater post-construction than pre-construction. That is a state law.
We saw that happen with the Hope Lane project,
Yeah,
the back and forth that they were not able
and the
to.
planning board was willing to say that this is not gonna be able to happen because there's engineering.
And we do want to make it better. We understand that it can't be any worse, but we want to make it better for that area as well.
But that all goes to a different issue than we're here
Yes.
for.
Yes.
That's
That-
right.
yeah,
Well,
so
and that's-
this
and
is
that's
the town
something-
hall.
And
That
that's,
would
some- yeah, and that's
yeah.
something I wanted to say, as I guess we wrap up the public hearing a little bit, is the zone change itself will not have these physical impacts. However, we have the planning board, which, thank you, Counselor Waters, for bringing it up, has taken a stand when a project is not going to meet state guidelines. It's not going to be, successful long-term for our community. And I think at this point, what I would like to make sure is that everyone knows that this is not where this ends. There's the planning board, we'll go through the whole process. We have high faith that they will make sure that they are doing their best to protect our residents. And hopefully, we'll be able to see that it does get better.
Yep.
At the end of the day, whoever owns the properties does not want their property to flood, and I can't imagine the goal would be to build something on this property that would flood regularly.
That's right.
And so I just want to make it clear that, this is the zone change, just like it was last time. There was a zone change and then it, didn't make its way through the planning board. So just moving forward, this is an opportunity for us to also reach out to the community and say, we want that feedback. We want more pictures. We want that. All of that information is going to help the town and the planning board and the developers come to a solution that is really the best fit for the community. So I just wanted to give you, sir, if you'd like to make one more comment before we close up the public hearing, or if anybody else would like to make a comment, absolutely, sir. If you come up to the podium.
Good evening. My name is Thomas Ralston. Upon hearing about this, I think that the idea is great. I think that any improvement on that stretch of North Burdick Street is going to be a benefit to the community, widespread, not to mention the revenue dollars from tax, sales tax, things of that nature. And I also believe that the technologies that are available to us today in the civil engineering world, whatever happens down there, as Mr. Serio said, that anything would be an improvement that would exist today. So to make that land improved and prevent further flooding from all the residents.
Thank you very much. Right. No, first, come up to the podium.
I'm not an educated man, but I'll tell you what, I just retired from Onondaga County DOT, okay? I've dealt with a lot of flood waters and stuff like that. I'm gonna tell you right now, some years back, when they went over to 290 over there to fix the flooding over there, they put that new bridge in and everything else, the engineers came and said, this is gonna work. And I'll tell you, since that day that bridge went in there, both sides of 290 is flooded. Manoa Road is flooded across on both sides. We weren't able to fix it. Now, this is an engineer. I'm no engineer, but he made a funnel over there. You got billions of gallons of water, millions of gallons of water coming down through that creek.
So just we'll focus on the subject of the public hearing of this zone change.
It all backs up together.
Absolutely.
It's all the same creek. It's all the same creek. When they come down, they were gonna develop the piece of property on the village side down there. The engineer came in and said, well, it's only a 1/4 inch rise. Well, guess what? When you're in a flood way, 0 rise. I mean, they wanted to prove this, but you have to read the fine print. 0 is 0. 1/4 inch, 1/8 inch, doesn't matter what it is. 0 is 0 when it comes to floodway. So, and I know FEMA's working on trying to change all this stuff and everything down there. And guess what? I don't think it's gonna go through. I really don't, and there's no way. I want to see somebody prove to me when you displace the water, it's gonna be down there.
Well, I will say, I do really appreciate it. You came to my office, you delivered us the pictures, and I hope that moving forward, that, I want to keep that dialogue open with that whole neighborhood to make sure that through this public process, everyone has an opportunity to look at what's proposed. But again, I do really appreciate that, but we are talking about the zone change tonight.
Well, one of the things down there too, you gotta realize too, I mean, there's a lot of people down there. I talked to all my neighbors, didn't receive anything about this. I mean, they didn't receive letters. I talked to a few of the people down there in that village area, in that little neighborhood, didn't receive anything. A lot of them are seniors. They can't actually get out and get up here and stuff and everything.
We ran a 1,000-foot radius in the GIS program and produced, gosh, I want to say it was several letters. It was over 100. We keep records of all that.
Okay.
So
Well,
if
some of
we-
the people on Sims down there said they didn't receive
Well, it
it.
would be great if we could find out from those folks who did receive the letters. I'd love to figure out if maybe there was an issue or something, but thank you for bringing that to our
Did you
attention.
get the letter?
I got it. I'm right on Burdick. I'm right next door to the property.
And any letters that are returned, we retain those.
Okay,
So
Thank
I
you.
want to make a quick point, if I may,
Yeah.
that when we talk about zone changes in the past, we've often talked about how once we change the zone, it could be turned into anything that fits that zone, and we give a lot of thought to what the impact of all of those hypothetical situations might be. So I think that this gentleman's points are prudent.
Yeah.
Regardless of whether or not it's a town hall. I mean, I know that we're separating them, and I think that's great, but I think that we should still be mindful of any possible future use, which would likely include some type of building. And this gentleman's made the point that he is afraid that that will not mitigate flooding by any means, but make it worse, which I think is a very legitimate point to make in discussing a zone change.
Absolutely.
I also think that the healthy skepticism around the engineering promises versus what the actual experiences of on the ground are something that we have to keep in mind and be held accountable to, because there are so many examples in the community of things that, but there's a difference between a PowerPoint and the actual data. So I think it's
Everything
incumbent.
looks pretty on paper.
Right, but I think it's, right, I think it's really important for us to realize how important this project is to our community for the long term, considering that the rate of flooding will probably, because of the rising temperatures, get worse. I think it's a test for us in terms of understanding development for the next, 50 to 100
Yeah.
years. So I just want to say that I agree. Please do not stop being part of the process as a neighbor.
It would be great if it improved, right? Like if this all went through and everything is perfect and we can do all the things we want to do and it all just works out.
Be great.
Maybe that's
But
a
if we can, just so that we're not back and forth.
To me that it's gonna stop, guess what? I'm all for it.
Yeah.
I'm not against development.
Okay,
I
great.
mean, anything to make our village better, and I don't want it to look like Erie Boulevard, which is already starting to, but we all need, the way things are going, everybody needs jobs and stuff. Okay? I'm not against development. You bring jobs in there, fine, great. But you know what? Protect what's here first.
Thank you.
I've heard too many people say, not my backyard. It's not your backyard, it's in mine. It's not gonna affect you. That's what you gotta remember. It's not your backyard. And I mean, I don't wanna leave here. I've lived my whole life in this village,
No,
There's a
thank
lot
you.
of people down there, yeah, they raised their kids. They're down there living in their retirement homes and stuff. They can't just get up and leave. Most of them probably like to because they're underwater.
Thank you very much, sir. We really appreciate it. Are there any further comments?
I'll make a quick comment. My name is Troy Bullock. I'm a resident of the town of Manlius, 7799 Rolling Ridge Drive. I just wanted to say that I support the zone change, given that it's consistent with the corridor. And it would allow for an underutilized property to, have some new development, and it would allow for it to be developed into its highest and best use. As a younger person, it would be great to see new things happening there.
Thank you very much. Anyone else? Okay, so we will leave the public hearing open, okay? We don't usually make a motion, we just leave it open. So this will be at the top of our agenda at the next meeting, the 23rd at 6:30, or 6:35. Oh, no, 6:30, we can actually just roll right into it.
Well, yeah.
Public
comment.
Open podium.
Open podium, yes, yes. So after open podium, it'll be in right. So, thank you very much for coming and presenting.
Well, I just want to say too, I hope you come back to the next meeting, because this is the second time in my career that an attorney didn't get bashed and we were bashing engineers.
I don't like attorneys either. Never needed,
You
but.
had to ask for it. You couldn't just let it go. You had to ask for it.
Fantastic. Thank you very much.
I do have another comment.
Yeah.
I'd like to make before you guys leave.
Yeah, sure.
So, in looking at this holistically for the future, I don't believe that we should make zone changes that don't also are accompanied by a subdivision, so that the zone is a lot and the different zone is a different lot. And you didn't propose it that way, so I just want to say now before you leave and then find out, I'm just going to say it 2 weeks from now, that I believe we need a subdivision. The way that the lots are now are very bizarre anyway.
Yep. And that is in the plan to be done through planning. Planning board does that, and we absolutely agree that all the tax maps.
So for us to approve a zone change, we would need the borders of what is that new lot going to look like.
Well, you would just do a conditional approval
Okay.
of it.
Okay.
So I
Contingent upon
just want you to be aware
Yeah,
that that's gonna be
absolutely,
something.
yeah,
that's
we 100% are on board with that.
Fantastic.
And
Yes.
then the other thing is I'm gonna suggest that the red line that Mr. McKelliker, that is in fact the floodway, because it does flood and you can see it every year,
Mhm.
that nothing be built inside that floodway.
Yeah,
Which
and
means
again,
taking the CA out of
right,
that.
that absolutely is up to planning, 100%, yes.
Right, but we're gonna say that we're not gonna give you a zone change for anything that's on the other side of that red line.
In other
Well,
words,
that's what
take,
Tara's
in other words, make that
Make the
our,
drawing different.
It would be RA.
so it would be our.
So the ask is to adjust the proposed CA on the southern portion of the site to
be-
follow
the
the floodway.
Follow the floodway over. Yeah.
So the CA will be smaller on that half.
Mhm.
So
I just
That's-
wanted
that's
to-
the
I'm gonna
request.
say that now
We
so that
can
you don't have to find out later.
give you some time to think about it. We can talk about it
At the next
leading
meeting.
up and we'll communicate any possible changes or anything like that.
Elaine, is that good for you?
That's what I like as well. Yeah.
Fantastic. Well, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks for your time.
Okay. So, at 7:15 or 7:16. Okay, so we're gonna jump to item number 6, which is the Recreation Department.
We have a longer agenda if y'all want to stay.
No, Christine's been here all day.
This is way easier.
I'm just- one sec. I just asked that as folks are kind of shuffling out, any conversations to be taken outside or further down the hall, but thank you very much for joining us.
So great.
Nobody wants to stay.
It's the good stuff.
I stayed. Okay, so did everybody receive the, agreement contract for the show? Let me just give you a little bit of a quick, overview of what that is and what it's for. We've done a show since 1976. We didn't do one in 88, I believe, and then obviously we didn't do one the last 2 years. So I am super thrilled to be able to bring this agreement to you guys tonight, because we will be doing our summer show, this year. So I'm very excited about that. This is a very basic agreement, and what it is companies own the rights to do shows. People that want to do those productions have to then in turn rent those rights to do the show. Included in this are the rights to do the show for 3 nights, the materials, meaning the scripts and the orchestra books. That's all it is. Very simple.
And it's all been budgeted for in.
It's definitely budgeted for, it's under summer show, under recreation, all of the summer show expenses fall under that.
I just had one question. So this will be an in-person show?
Yep.
It won't have any like live streaming or recording?
Yeah, I don't, legally
Not
not
allowed.
allowed. Hands are tied there.
You'd have to pay.
Well, it's a lot more.
That's why, like here, it says something about streaming royalty, so that's why I didn't know.
Yeah, we are definitely not. Yeah, no, we will be in person and we will follow any kind of guidelines that the school has us follow, which obviously at this point in February, we don't know what those are going to be quite yet. But we will follow whatever Dr. Tice tells us we need to do.
Yeah, this is a fairly completely standard licensed performance contract.
We have a professional here.
Yeah.
Appreciate it.
All these skills and
Yes.
Look at it. Why is it-
I'll send it to him next time, Tim. I'll send it to.
So I would entertain a motion to approve the summer show contract.
a motion.
My favorite thing to do tonight is second things. May I
All in
second it?
favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carries.
Thank you.
Woo-hoo.
Thank you.
Looking forward to the show.
Me too. Now what remains?
Now we will return to our previously scheduled agenda. Next up, we've got Highway Superintendent Rob Cushing.
Okay, Mr. Supervisor, I do have a couple things tonight. Hope everyone got a chance to look at that contract that, I know that the 3 board members that were here back in September. We did send a letter of intent to replace that ourselves. So we've actually got a copy of their contract. So what they're looking for at this point in time is have the supervisor sign the contract, then have a deposit alongside that, John, with the $41,989. So Tim, I hope you looked that over. I don't think there's any really huge issues there. So they're We're looking to order the stuff and hopefully get going on this first thing in the
Yeah,
spring.
and I will say, for some background for everybody in attendance, we were very lucky to be able to secure, with the letter of intent. I don't know what they said the prices would be, but it would be significantly greater.
Like
Yeah,
a
there was a
30%
significant
increase.
increase in steel price at the
Yeah.
time. If we didn't order it then, or at least get it letter of intent in.
Yeah.
There was gonna be like a 20% increase
Yeah.
in the steel price.
And just so everyone's aware, this is the area at the highway department where all of the salt is stored. So which has a concrete base, some walls that come up, and there's a canopy with a steel frame that has a canopy over it. This is to replace the canopy.
The concrete walls are staying, so everything else above is steel.
Yeah.
What's
And
the-
it's,
I'm sorry, what's the projected general lifespan?
About 25 years. And right now, we're about 22, 23, something like that.
and so
It's
this
already
is,
starting to rip pretty good.
Yeah.
The unfortunate part is you wait too long. Obviously, the prices are going to go down, you know, so they're kind of being proactive. The money, by the way, we're already set aside for this. I think we did.
it was the vast
$68,000 in the
majority,
budget, but the vast majority was budgeted. for-
and that was set aside in budgets
Capital.
previously
An
to build up the
expectation of
funds.
this.
Yeah.
And we used ARPA
And we'll do
funds,
that again for the next one.
Right.
yeah, and we did use ARPA funds just to get over that last slide.
So I'll make a motion to approve the supervisor to sign the agreement with Eagle Associates.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carries.
John, the other thing that I got, I did mention to Elaine, I know she was there. But I did talk to the engineers from the county on the Redstone Road Bridge. So they're looking to actually put a bid together. They're putting it together right now. I hope they're gonna release that, probably mid-March.
Mhm.
So we are gonna be replacing that bridge. There's gonna be some closures there for some time on the bridge. They certainly will let me know. I'll pass that on to Allison.
Yeah, we'll make sure that we get that out. as
Yeah,
fast as
we'll get that
possible.
information out. I don't think it's gonna really, like Elaine and I were talking, a lot of people don't really use that section of it, so it's not gonna be huge.
You can go around to
A lot of people go up and around, so.
Great.
Traffic.
So I'll keep the board abreast of that, and the other thing that I've got is the sweeper that we purchased, and we're replacing, we're selling a 2008 Johnson sweeper. I had it up for auction for the last 10 days with Auctions International. This is the first, for me. There was only 3 bidders, and I expected to get way more than what we did for the sweeper. So our actual price that they got was $8,100. So I'd like to make a recommendation to this board. We've got the options. We can certainly, we have the right to pull any and all bids. So what Auctions International said, they asked me what I thought the minimum bid would be. So I think it's at least a minimum bid of $15,000. I can't let it go for less than that. So they're gonna offer it to the person who did win the bid, the awarded bid. If he wants to accept that, then certainly I'll bring that back to the board. But at this point, we'll wait a couple of weeks, we can move a little bit early on selling it. You can always put a minimum bid, which I think would be our best interest at this point. Worst case scenario, I think we can do a closed bid type of thing later on, but for $8,100, I'll keep it.
I could buy it for $8,100.
That's what I mean, to drive it back and forth to work.
Any authorization to go forward with
So I
it?
don't think we need the authorization, Tim, but I just want to make sure the board was aware that this is the first time that we've actually gonna reject a bid.
Wow.
So we've always done pretty well with most of our stuff. And again, I think a lot of it's timing. So I'm gonna try.
Sounds good.
I'll make sure that, you guys are aware of what's.
So if we're rejecting the bid, I think we
Okay.
should authorize that, and leave it up to the superintendent of highway to determine how he wants to dispose of, whether he wants to rebid it or. how he wants to
And so I'll make a motion to authorize the superintendent of highway to reject the existing bid and make a plan for a rebidding.
Very good.
I'll second it.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carries.
Thank you. All set, sir.
Thank you. Okay, next up, we have Tom Poitras from Planning and Development. So Phil, what's going on?
Mr. Supervisor, Town Board, good evening. The annual Uniform Code and Energy Code Administration and Enforcement Report from New York State has been submitted to New York State. The Town of Manlius annual report has also been completed and is available online and at the front counter of the Planning and Development Office. Are there any questions in regards to those 2 reports?
very nice for something you had to do when you didn't do any of the work.
Yes.
It was great to see everything come together.
That's great.
It must have been a
So
little bit challenging.
it was at the recording process through the town of Manlius made it actually very, very easy and efficient to complete. So
Fantastic.
that was very good.
Kudos to Lisa.
The second item is the New York State Stretch Code, which is an addendum to the current energy code, which I was asked to review and gather information for the town board and try and organize individuals and organizations to have a thorough, comprehensive presentation for that. Before the formal presentation for the town board, I think a lot more time needs to be allotted. There's already been questions that have arisen that should be answered before being brought into it. I feel that adoption of the code should be thoroughly reviewed for all aspects of how it will affect the town, current residents, future residents, and future development within the town.
And I know you've been doing a lot of research, meeting with a lot of folks. I know I got to sit in on a meeting with some of the local home builders and making it clear, this is the start of a conversation. This is a very big change. We want to understand what this impact, what the impacts of this will be, so that we essentially, I want to make sure that the board is given, all the facts from NYSERDA, all the facts from the local builders that are on the ground that are going to have to deal with these changes, so that we're as informed as possible when we go out to make this decision. So, and to anyone who is watching, who has any interest, this is the beginning of the conversation. Please reach out if you have questions, concerns, any comments on the process, please do that. We're looking for as much feedback as possible so we can make the best informed decision.
I have a quick question. Can you can we basically update our code to be better in line with Stretch or mimic parts of Stretch, but not adopt the whole thing at once?
We can adopt parts of it. There are, I don't want to say restraints to that, but everything that has been put into the New York Stretch has been vetted through agencies to actually prove that it is more energy efficient. So if we were to adopt something into our code, we would have to prove to the New York State that it is actually more efficient.
And we're going to get information too about like how far away we are from like a full state change to this. I mean, we all want to be prepared. We all want to make progress, but we also want to be prepared for.
Whatever happens, having this conversation now is going to be beneficial to the residents.
Yeah.
So if we can kick the can down the road and not talk about it until the state does it, or we can start the conversation, and whatever we end up deciding, we will be better off for that conversation.
Well, we have these energy and efficiency goals, but my question is, which are important, but also I don't want to become the poison pill town where nobody wants to build or do things here because we're the ones that have the onerous code.
Well, I'll push back on that because I don't think that that's really the case. I think that that is like a misnomer, really. The fact of the matter is homes have become much more energy efficient. And I'll share an anecdote that my mother shared with me years ago when I bought my first house. And it was really old and wind would come in through all the cracks and everything. And she said it's actually good that your house does that because a house needs to breathe. Has anyone else ever heard this? Okay, so and she wasn't wrong. A house does need to breathe. As we have created much more energy efficient homes, we've insulated them. We've bought all the new windows, all the new building codes for any homes that have been built in the last 10 years. They don't breathe anymore. That's great for energy efficiency because you're not losing your heating and air conditioning out the windows, out the roof, whatever it might be. So because the houses aren't breathing anymore, they're not healthy anymore. People are breathing in toxic fumes that come in from your attic, from your basement, from your garage, and there's no ventilation. The stretch code, while it makes improvements still to energy efficiency, the stretch code is all about healthy homes, healthy air inside your home. So what makes it an element that does make it more expensive for builds is that it requires a ventilation system.
Right. I was
So-
remembering that presentation.
I think that going forward, New York State in the next however many years, year or two, maybe 3, but I don't think it'll be that long, the stretch code is going to be New York State code. It will be our code whether we want it or not. It'll be the code of every municipality in the state. And if we were to adopt it, any new properties that would be developed in our town would be the healthiest homes in the state. And I think that people, as we're hopefully in an exit strategy for the pandemic, will appreciate healthier, more energy efficient homes that over the long term will pay dividends in terms of reduced energy costs and possibly reduced healthcare costs.
Thank you. Yep.
Thank you.
And just, yeah, so we're gonna make sure that every member of the board has as much information as possible. Okay?
So I guess if, from the analysis that you're doing, if you could provide at whatever time frame it makes sense, sort of a summary of what the builders say, what the engineers say.
Yeah, we're in that fact finding. Yeah, we had a good initial conversation. We've got a couple people that are really committed to working with us. And
We're
making
working
sure-
with the Central New York Regional Planning and Development Board with Chris Carrick in the Energy Department and with Josh Stack and his company. They are tasked by NYSERDA with doing public education. And they are a resource. I mean, Tom and I sat down with them for 2.5 hours a couple weeks ago. And every question that Tom had, they had the answer. So that is a free resource. There's apparently, there are planners, I guess, shopping around their services. So like someone brought it to me like, oh, if you want to learn about the stretch code for $100 an hour, this guy will come in. And Chris Carrick, it was during the Sustainable Manlius Committee meeting, and Chris Carrick and I were like, no, there's a free guy. So if you have questions, Josh Stack, I can get you his contact information. It's his job to educate people. So if you have questions, like I emailed him today about how it would affect low to moderate income housing. He got right back to me within like 5 minutes with the answer. So we have resources. Tom and I are learning about it, and we'll have more opportunities for more public input over the coming weeks.
And I think giving the individuals who are not part of NYSERDA, the home builders, the remodelers, who haven't heard of the New York State stretch code, or even commercial developers that are not as aware of it, people outside of the town of Manlius that may come in and try and develop, giving them the opportunity to review it and get back to us. So, if anybody that comes into Manlius has given their input, or anybody that's building here, wants to build here, is looking from outside Manlius to build a home. It doesn't, not only does it affect residential, it affects commercial construction. If you're opening a pizza shop, your equipment would then have to be reviewed for compliance. So there's a lot to it besides just residential. And I want everybody that is going to have a stake in this to be able to present to the board, so everybody can make a very thorough and educated approval or disapproval for the adoption.
And NYSERDA is a two-way street too. Like Tom's been great about communicating with them, and they're really working with us on like taking our feedback and helping us to come up with ideas surrounding things like incentives to help perhaps reduce the costs of the increased building expenses. So we're doing a deep dive on this.
Fantastic. Thank you, Tom.
Thank
Thanks,
you,
Tom,
Gordon.
so
Thank you,
much.
Supervisor.
Okay. Next up, attorney.
I have nothing other than I would like to discuss a matter, an attorney-client privilege with the board after the meeting is over.
Okay.
But other than that, I don't, what's that?
We need executive session.
Yeah.
Well, when you speak with me, an attorney-client and privilege, it's actually an exception to the open meetings law. It's not even it's excluded from the open meetings law. But yeah, for all intents and purposes, it's an executive session.
Okay. Okay.
I don't have anything else. I don't think.
Okay. Next up, Town Clerk Weber.
Yes, I have submitted to everybody my annual report. I went over it with Councilor Denton. You would see that the engineering fees that we collected in escrow were much higher. That was due to $300,000 in solar decommissioning fees that we collected and are retaining escrow. But other than that, it was a pretty normal year.
We don't need to approve that.
A motion to accept.
I will make a motion to accept the town clerk's report for 2021.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carries. Thank you. Okay, next up, we got the chief.
Item number one, and there's a typo on the agenda here, that's special patrol officer agreement. So I'd be looking for a motion to allow the town supervisor to sign a new agreement with Effingham School District for a special patrol officer.
And this is to fill the vacancy that's there.
Correct.
Okay.
At Effingham.
Is this to fill the vacancy that was recently vacated by the same person?
Yes.
Okay, any discussion? Otherwise, I'll entertain a motion.
I'll make a motion to approve.
And I'll second it.
Okay, all in favor? Opposed? Carries. Thank you.
January in service is in the books. Everything went really well. Our February in service was completely canceled because our vendor was unable to fill that contract. Monday and Tuesday, we did up to 15 panel interviews for our 4 vacancies for police officer position. And I'm happy to report that 10 of those 15 will go to the next level. So hopefully we'll have plenty of people to fill those 4 vacancies. And then the last thing is, I'd look to have another motion to allow the town supervisor to sign an agreement with the SPO, one SPO position for the ESM school district.
And just to give everybody some feedback, I did talk to Dr. Desiato and the team over there, and they, as always, sang the praises of the CIRO program. And really, just for some context, they've, over the past few years, experienced quite a bit of growth. They're up, I think, somewhere between 1,100 and 1,200 students in the high school now. And this SBO is really to essentially grow, to take their normal policy and grow with that, with that increased student population. So any discussion, or I entertain a motion?
You said take their normal policy?
So they have one CIRO for the high school right now, and it's, that's been in place for a very long time. And now with the growth of how many students they have, this SBO is really to provide extra coverage to, their normal, policy of having an officer in school. It's just that there's more coverage, or if CIRO has to go off site to make sure there's still someone.
Okay. Yeah, I'll make a motion to approve the contract.
A second.
Okay, all in favor? Opposed?
I'm gonna say nay.
You can, if you'd like, yeah.
Say, oh, yes.
What did you say, Elaine?
She's opposed.
She's opposed.
So that carries. Anything else, chief?
That's it. Thank you.
Hoping those 10, keep us apprised of what's going on, because
Will
that's
do.
very helpful. It's some good news for a change. Yeah. Okay, next up, town manager.
Sure, the town of Manlius, health insurance, we're self-insured, and the board that oversees that is OSEBA, Onondaga County Employee Benefits Association. We just need a motion to designate designees for communication purposes. And as normal, it would be the town supervisor, and generally, and myself, and Kate Blight. So we just need a motion to designate those 3 individuals.
I'd be happy to make a motion to designate the supervisor, Ann Ode and Kate Blythe, as representatives to OSEBA for communication purposes.
I'll second.
Fantastic. All in favor? Opposed? Carries. Okay, committee reports, comprehensive planning committee.
So, since the last meeting, we had the technology focuser, and we are planning, and town clerk Weber has already put up, we have a meeting on the 15th is the stormwater meeting, and March 1st will be the quarry meeting that will be recorded and available to the public. The technology meeting was already recorded and is available on the town's YouTube channel if anyone is interested in watching.
Fantastic.
And the steering committee will meet on the 16th for its next meeting.
And that will also be live streamed on the 16th. It will be, there's no in-person on the 16th, it will be a Zoom meeting.
What time is that at?
6:30.
6:30. Yeah,
All of them are at 6:30.
even better. Okay, is that all for comprehensive planning? Any? Yep. Okay, good there, good there. So next up is me. So I have the supervisor's report for 2021. If everyone had an opportunity to take a look at that.
I did, so I would make a motion to accept the supervisor's report for December 2021.
One second.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carries. One thing I did want to bring up, I had circulated a letter. This point, maybe 2 or 3 weeks ago now. I kind of asked everybody for feedback. I kind of checked in with everybody. I know Counselor Denton has some feedback, but in general, is that letter moving in the right direction? My understanding is that everyone understands
This
that.
is the inland port letter.
So this is, one of the things that, since I've been sitting in the office now, a lot of folks talking about that truck traffic over on Fremont Road. And the plan is to really attack this in every possible way to try to find a solution. Because I don't think one solution or one approach is gonna really solve this problem. And it's a pretty serious impact on the residents that live up there. They're experiencing significantly more truck traffic than has ever really been there. And, we can attribute a lot of that to some of the development that's happening around the county, but also the C6 rail yard now being able to take off international cargo, which makes it a pretty big hub, which is likely why we're seeing all that increased truck traffic. So the letter I put together was essentially saying that we would be appreciative for, really any solution, but in particular, something we've had before us a few times, the 3GI Inland Port Project. When we left that project off, we basically said, if you can prove access through the retired, what are they, oil tanks, we would essentially continue that conversation. I wrote the letter in a way to make it clear that that was, wasn't necessarily a massive approval of the project, but just really looking for any option that might help alleviate some of that traffic off of Fremont Road. If anybody, if there's any real feedback, Elaine?
No, I don't agree with the letter as it's written right now. I can go into some reasons if people want me to.
Okay.
So some of my feedback that I shared with the supervisor was just that the exit would take years to build, as well as any other solution. So why wouldn't we advocate for the best solution, which I believe is the 481 exit, to actually alleviate the traffic, because with the other potential project, it just wasn't clear if the roads would actually be built. I know at one point it'd still be on the same road that it still is, but then it would increase its left-hand turn and potentially creating an issue there. And then if they were able to go through the oil tanks, they'd still have to cross wetlands, and that was unsure of how that would work. And then it would hit the Gordon Road, which I believe we share with the town of
So it'll still come out on Kirkville Road, right?
yeah, and so I just thought if we were going to support something, we should support the best solution, and I thought that was the exit 41.
And so just so everybody knows, that my goal was to essentially say in favor that we want traffic solutions, and it's not necessarily saying we want this project to come to conclusion, but again, the conversation we left off was when you have access, come back to us. And this is, in my opinion, us just essentially making that in some way official to say, if they get access, we will continue to have that conversation.
I still believe that we need to understand what the conversations are happening at the county and state level on this issue, and with the town of DeWitt, make
And
sure.
so I've been engaged with some of our state delegates, and we're, essentially trying to figure out, where is the buy-in to a project like this?
Right.
But my focus has been on that truck traffic.
No doubt. The question I would ask is, I saw the notice about freight. I saw that Senator Mannion announced $9 million or something to improve freight service. And so I wanted to understand how that might impact the CSX railway and the DeWitt rail yard, if at all. It didn't seem like it was included. And
No, I don't
No,
think
it's
it's, I think it's all
Syracuse.
appropriated.
Wasn't it Syracuse too?
yeah, and it was Syracuse, so it might be the other spaces.
Yeah,
So
it's fine.
that seems interesting that there was, freight support there. And I wonder if that's because of the same, we were told that the reason that the increased freight was coming to us was not just the international, the new policy to allow international cargo, but the cost of it being less on that particular rail line. So I really, I think that at the end of the day, I support the letter as it is, but that's because I think it is clear in saying we need to talk about the traffic situation for our residents. And as long as that's emphasized,
I guess I would say both and. I think we need a planned strategy to get the exit off of 481, and we need to keep our eyes on the real side.
Mhm.
And I think we need to meet with our assembly and senator, we need to meet with our congressperson, we need to
So we're gonna
coordinate with
have,
DeWitt.
we're gonna have Senator Mannion here tomorrow to talk about a bunch of different things. It'll definitely be one of the things we talk about. We're reaching out to Assemblyman Sturpey as soon as possible, and have been trying to get a meeting with Ed McCollum, Town Supervisor DeWitt, so that we can talk about next steps for that project.
So I think we need like a real coordinated plan, because 81 is only gonna happen once.
Yeah.
And when it's gone, it's gone.
So I would entertain a motion to approve the letter as is, if anyone would be interested in making that. We can make edits and hear it again at the next board meeting. I would like to wrap that up, because the letter isn't gonna immediately cause any changes. Just wanted to see if we'd be comfortable sending that out.
I'd rather, can Elaine and I work on that with you and just make sure that we're good with it? Well, and we can approve it at the next meeting.
Sure. Thank you. Okay, so,
Mr. Sigerman.
Well, so we are not going to make any decisions after I discuss things with you. I mean, I don't want to keep Allison, so we could actually adjourn the
well, so
meeting.
we've got one more. round.
Oh, I'm sorry.
No,
I'm
no,
so
you're fine,
sorry.
you're fine.
I'm so sorry.
You're just sticking around for
We have the
everything.
one legal thing we absolutely have to do
That's
tonight.
why. I
Oh,
don't
I'm
think it should be
sorry.
At the end.
That's fair, no, I appreciate the feedback.
So I would like to make a motion, Mr. Supervisor, to approve $5,156,753.67.
That's required.
Just to let you know, it's for the fire departments. It's not for anybody else. For abstract number 3.
One second.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carries.
I think that's the most money I've ever spent in one day.
So should we adjourn the meeting?
Yeah, I think we can adjourn. the meeting. We're not taking that.
So thank you for coming.
I will entertain a motion to adjourn the meeting.
Oh, so.
Thanks for staying.
Second.
Holy moly.
It's my duty.
Yeah.
Good job,
Thanks,
Christine.
Mr. Patel.
You got her way, that's why she said it.
What, hold on, what's that?